Hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman, and welcome to now part 3 of REVICE month, where today we will be talking about the REVICE Saber team-up, KamenRider Beyond Generations. Crap, I need to drink tea first. Today was my first time watching this movie, and it is phenomenal. Like, I love every part of it, which is why today's review is going to be a bit different. Like, instead of going over the story beat for beat, we're instead going to summarize the plot in details. We're going to talk about parts that I liked and what parts were just a bit weird. Like, if you see in the KamenRider Veil video, it's going to be like that. So, let's begin. Now, the plot of this movie is very every time travel plot ever. It's the future, there are these bad guys in the future, so the heroes go back into the past to beat the said bad guys, so on. And so, in 2071, 50 years from now, Earth is taken over by demons, and a very old and is somehow still alive by that point, George, finds someone to become KamenRider Sentry named Ryunosuke Mosuke. He gives him the Cyclotron Driver. How it's pronounced is very weird, but he gives him his Henshin belt, and it also acts as a time machine because Ryunosuke wears the belt and his consciousness is sent into the past, while his physical, actual body is unconscious in the future. Now, why his consciousness is sent into the past is so that he can find his son, who he hasn't seen in like 50 years, and merge with him to become KamenRider Sentry. Why the belt works like that in the first place is weird, but George at least figured out time travel? Sort of? But it's all worth it later, at least. And so, now, let's talk about... Well, before going further, I thought I was going to talk about the villains first, but I can just do that afterwards. I want to talk about this movie's place in continuity. Like, I don't just mean in REVICE, because this is early on in REVICE. I mean its place in continuity in general. Now, REVICE, or at least Iki and Vice, have met the Saber Riders before. The first actual, apparently canon time they have met before was in the very last episode of Saber. And in this movie, there's a promotion going on at Happy Spa, and a couple of the Saber Riders run into Iki, and they all remember each other immediately. So, it's right off the bat very clear that this all, Saber and REVICE, they both take place within the same universe. And, spoiler alert right now, Shocker is mentioned in a big part in this movie. So, apparently, both REVICE and Saber take place in the main universe, if Shocker is so well known. And I thought that was... Honestly would have thought Saber and REVICE would have taken place within their own separate worlds, considering with how Saber is as a show coming off of 01, where it was humans versus robots. And even people said before too how they thought REVICE would take place in its own separate world, but no, not exactly. Like, both of these shows are all part of the main universe, basically. And honestly, how do I feel now about the involvement of the Saber Riders in this movie? I think they were needed how they were needed with it, with this whole thing being a big, excuse me. I think the involvement of the Saber Riders was well needed because of how big of a threat the villains are in this movie. But because each writer's, like, I guess, screen time and dialogue was shredded down just a bit, it's fine for what we get, because I do remember Saber, and there are still characters from that show I don't like. So the fact that they get a cut of screen time does not bother me. Plus, all the extra characters from Saber and REVICE and whatnot, there's a story going on, so we can't waste too much time thinking, hey, this person doesn't have so many lines as this person. So I think the Saber Riders being involved in this movie, it's fine. They were needed. Moving on. So now, let's talk about the villains. As I said before, the original Shocker play a big part in this movie. Not that Shocker comes back in this movie, but Phoenix has done their research on Shocker. Matter of fact, the power of Gift was actually in the hands of Shocker for a little bit, if per se. Like, the villains of this movie are these demons called the Crispers, and they were all demons that associated with Diablo, a being who's in a way just like Gift, who is completely evil and spawned from a duplicate Gift stamp. Shocker got their hands on it, and after its first use, when it did all kinds of damage, the Shocker decided, yeah, this is a little too powerful, so let's not use it. And somewhere down the line, Phoenix claimed the stamp, and they locked it away because, woo, Shocker had a reason to lock it away. Though I'm surprised Gel Shocker never bothered to use it. Moving on. Like, the Diablo stamp was kept away, the Dead Man's found it, and they decided they want to use it to basically destroy the world. It's just, what grabs my attention most about this, not so much the villains themselves, because the villains they're serviceable, but it's the backstory. The fact that the OG villains, Shocker, played a part and an involvement with Phoenix, quality, and the fact that Shocker plays a part in this movie in general, quality, just straight up quality. To which, right off the bat already, let's just talk about our movie exclusive writer, Century. Ryunosuke Momosuke, as a character, not bad. And it turns out Ryunosuke was a former Shocker scientist. Like, he was apparently around the time before joining Shocker, because, ooh, I just said something right there. I just said something right there, which makes this movie so great. So great. Ryunosuke is not actually from 2071. He is, but he's actually from 1971, back when Shocker and the original KamenRider were active. He was a husband and a father and a scientist, although a failed scientist. And one day he was recruited to join Shocker, and he just became one of their scientists. And he felt, well, for one, evil and just accomplished with using his science, well, for starters, turning people into cyborgs and whatnot, and causing a whole bunch of crime. But the fact that his science was well known, it was effective, it was accomplished, That's what got him more, not the fact that he abandoned his family. Yeah. Big part of this movie is a father trying to make up with his son, and that son is all grown up now, grew up without a dad, and that son is now telling him to fuck off. But, honest to God, his story though, he was a former Shocker scientist. He was one of the scientists that converted Takeshi Hongo into a cyborg. And just, woo, all that backstory. Like, if anyone has ever watched the Showa era, you gotta get what I mean. Just watching Showa Kamen Rider, seeing the villains use science and turn people into monsters and whatnot. You hear about it, and you see it sporadically, though, but the fact that the movie actually shows Shocker turning humans into cyborgs, creating monsters, being evil, kidnapping people, and just forcing them to join Shocker and everything. God, just the fact that we actually see it and not hear about it for once is just, it's such a treat. It's honest to God, such a treat. And Ryunosuke is the highlight. He's the highlight of this movie. And I'm talking about him as if he's just so evil now. In a way, he is and was. Like, as soon as he realized the mistake he's made and seeing Kamen Rider just do so much good, he realized he was wrong to abandon his family and decided to basically defect from Shocker. But knowing an evil organization, especially in the 70s, yeah, they ain't gonna let that go. And so once they found the Diablo stamp, they used it on him, and pretty much everyone that was in the room with him to test it on him, they died. And so to keep Shocker from coming after him, he basically went inside of a, I guess, escape pod or something, rocket, and goes off into space because Gift is there and is using his body, or at least would use his body for evil. And once he goes out into space, he's then caught into a wormhole that sends him to the future. It's all out there, elaborate, and just out there, but it's done in a way that all makes sense, because how much research is there on wormholes and what they do? Some people say if you enter a wormhole, you don't ever come back. But in this case, if you enter a wormhole, you time travel. I need a quick drink of tea so I can say this next thing, because we're all going to love this next thing I'm going to say after this tea. Time travel. This movie made time travel make sense. And to that I say, fuck you, Zio. Fuck you, Kamen Rider Zio. This is a movie that explained time travel so much better than 49 episodes of your own show. Just screw you, Zio. But, oh my god, just, yo. It's all crazy, but it makes sense. Just his backstory, and, oh my god, I really like this backstory. And I really like the conversations that Ryunosuke has with his son. To which, one part of this movie I thought was weird was how, not that he's from 1971 and still looks, well, young. It's that his son is, well, he looks much older and he has a son of his own. I find that a little bit weird because Well, I did find it weird a bit at first because this young guy who looks like he hasn't aged a day is the father, while this person who looks like he'd be someone's grandfather is the son. And he has a kid. I found that a little bit strange because he has a son, because the son has a son who's upset with his dad for working all the time. And I just looked at that first thinking, this would make a bit more sense if he was like a grandfather who was raising his grandson, but no, it's father and son. But to be fair, like people, I guess people can have kids later in life. So, but anywho, the interactions between Ryunosuke and his son Hideo, they're genuine and make sense because this kid grew up without a father, and now he's looking at his father looking exactly how he remembered him, and he's just saying, will you work with me to save the world? And the kid is just upset with him. That, I love that, because it's not just I'm upset with you because you weren't there. It's that all I wanted to do was just ride a train with you. And yeah, you weren't, like, he just skipped out. He has every reason to be mad at his dad. His dad skipped out on his family. He committed plenty of crimes as a scientist. And now he's just coming back in the picture to say, hey, can you do this one thing with me? Oh, that's why they can't become Sentry for a bit, because the kid is basically saying no. It's just that story. I like the story, not just the conflict, but the resolution. And I really like it. I love all of it. Shoot, while we're at it too, let's actually talk about KamenRider Sentry's look. Honestly, it's not bad. It's pretty fine. It looks like a combination of Ichigo and Shin. I think from just looking at its aesthetic and all, it's pretty cybernetic and all. But yeah, the suit, not bad. Now, let's talk about one of the other highlights of this movie. Ichigo. Takeshi Hongo is in this movie. But hold up. Here's the thing. It's not Hiroshi Fujioka. It's instead his son. Which, when thinking about it, I understand why they did this. Because his son is supposed to play a young Takeshi Hongo. And Hiroshi Fujioka now does not look like he's in his 20s. So I understand why they got his son for this. And in all honesty, his son knocked it out of the park. Like, when they said, do an impression of your dad, he did that. It's so awesome. And he doesn't just play his dad for like a short flashback or a small montage. No, we get a couple of minutes of flashbacks as his son, as Ichigo, like seeing him tortured and becoming a cyborg, like hell, seeing him fight some Showa monsters. We basically see his son basically be his dad as they reenact a couple of things from the original Kamen Rider. And it's awesome. All of it is straight up awesome. It's like, I think the fact too that it's his actual son, that's what makes it so great. Because, let's be honest, if they got some random person to become Takeshi Hongo, I think it would have been fine. But if you're a Rider fan and you know that this is the OG son, you're going to give this all the praise because hell to the yes. It's straight up awesome. Straight awesome. Oh, and apparently there's another interesting part about this movie, and that is that the seeing of the REVICE and Saber Riders transform into various Kamen Riders. The reason for that, for starters, is while there are the Crispers to deal with in the present, the Saber Riders and demons go deal with them, while live Jean, who else? Blade, Psycho, and Saber, and Vice, because actually that's like another weird thing too. Vice goes along with the couple of writers that go to the future. And I always found that weird because doesn't Vice need to be in the present with Iki? Matter of fact, Iki even transforms too without Vice. So it's like, I thought at least the one Vice stamp he would be able to use no problem would be Bard Rex. But apparently Iki could just transform without Vice being there. I guess? I just always thought that was weird. But yeah, in the future, a couple of writers go to protect Ryunosuke's body so that it doesn't, so that he doesn't die. And with George there, George has apparently worked on this system where with his tablet, he can transform the 5 or 6 of them into various Kamen Riders. And the reason why is because the future. No, seriously, that's the reason why. The future. It's 50 years into the future, so you're going to tell me that technology can't advance to that level? Hell, that is science on science on science. Hell, that's this movie's basic reasoning for things. Science on science on science. But yeah, the transforming of the past riders, not bad. They start off with a couple similar nods at first with each other. Like Jean transforming into Valkyrie because she's a female rider. Well, the first female rider of the Reiwa era. And the first female tertiary rider. Live gets transformed into Knight because they're both based off of bats. Vice, for some odd reason, well, I can get that. Vice transforms into Black RX. And the other, Blades transforms into Blade. Toei. Psycho transforms into Hyper Muteki X8, and Saber transforms into Axel. So, basically stuff like that. But, yeah, not bad. And it was actually another highlight, because the bad guys that they faced were all evil writers. So, it was a treat. And so, the final battle. I know I'm jumping around all over the place, like talking about the plot. But to be fair, this basically is the plot of the movie, and I'm just going for all the key parts in it. And so, this final battle was sweet, and also just wow. Because once everything comes back to the present, like, Ryunosuke showed his son that he actually did want to ride that bullet train with him and kept his ticket, and they finally were able to become, and stably, KamenRider Sentry. And so, the 4 riders, like Saber, Revi, Vice, and Sentry, they all fight and face Diablo by Mountain Fuji, while all the other riders basically go to different parts of the world. We're taking on the Crispers. That is quite nice because instead of just fighting, like having a big battle in Japan, let's have a fight in Siberia and Alaska and Egypt and so on. And having the big, better, greater fight happen in Japan. And so, crap, I blanked out for a moment. And here's how it's interesting that this movie is canon to the show. Because the Neo Bata Vice stamp, it first shows up here, and then we see it later in the show. Because, well, present day George made that Vice stamp. And Vice referenced, well, old George in that episode. But yeah, the Neo Bata Vice stamp, that's based off of KamenRider 01. My mind's not particularly on the nod, but more so that it's overpowered. And frankly, I'm surprised it wasn't used more in the show. Because here's what I mean by overpowered. This rider-based form is most likely the most powerful rider-based form for REVICE. And hell, in REVICE, because once Diablo grows big, they remix into the Neobata REVICE, and they grow to meet the size of Diablo. Once again, science on science on science, and this is old George making this, and considering the threat level, yeah, designing it to have the remix grow giant? Yeah, alright. And it can also break apart into like a swarm of grasshoppers too. Like, so this could have been a very useful in the show. Just throwing that out there. But it's amazing how powerful that form is, that it can do that and that. But no matter what, they still kill the monster with rider kicks. But like, that form could have been extremely more useful in the show. It's just wow. Just wow. And so, lastly, that final talk, that final father-son moment, it's touching because with Diablo defeated, Rinosuke is going back to the future, and it will all be completely different. Like, and before they had to go and help out Iki, he said, let's go on that train ride together, finally. But after the battle, of course, but the battle over and he has to go back to the future, he tells his son, go take a train ride with your son now in my steed. I'm a thing in the past, man. You don't make the same mistakes as me. And it was heartwarming. And before I forget, Rinosuke has his lucid vision of Takeshi Hongo and apologizes to him. But Hongo says that it all worked out. And he's not wrong. Shocker's been dead for how many years now? And Kamen Rider has been a franchise that's gone on for 50 years. So yeah, it all worked out. This movie was phenomenal. Just phenomenal. If you have not seen Beyond Generations, definitely go watch it. And if you haven't seen it, watch it again. Because this is... I don't want to overhype this. I definitely think this is one of the best Kamen Rider movies out there, if not the best. Now, I know saying the best is quite a bit, and that's definitely, it sounds like I'm overhyping it, but this movie has everything. Fanfare, good drama, great action, awesome fan service, and all of it accumulating with Kamen Rider's 50th anniversary. This is fantastic. Like, I can't help but think, yeah, this is a fantastic movie. One of the best Kamen Riders ever made. It's awesome. Oh, yeah, there's another thing that's on my mind, and it involves Lady Sophia. Like what I said, everyone from Saber in this movie, and she becomes Caliber again later. That honestly made me think, you would make a great extra ranger in Sentai, because you would just show up, transform, and fight basically whenever you feel like it. But that's that. So, Beyond Generations, go watch it. It's a great movie. And just thank you guys for watching. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share this video, tell your friends about KamenRider Blackman, and next week we will be checking out all things KamenRider Chimera. So with that, we'll continue on REVICE month there. Peace.